This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by Allison Cook and Super Inframan. Thank you so very much. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? Tonight, I have a very unusual story we're going to be talking about with my guests, Heather and Natalie. How are you two doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right.
And I'm just saying it in there. Oh, sorry.
And Heather, you've been on Strange Familiars before, talking about this story.
Yes, I have.
And is there a little more to it as well?
A little more to the story that I told on Strange Familiars.
Yeah.
You mean?
Like stuff that's happened since? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then it sort of envelops Heather or envelops Natalie into this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the starting point.
All right. So do you want to just kind of tell people what happened and what's been happening to you over the last few years?
Sure. It started in 2006 when I was about 18, and I was working at a gas station overnight the summer before I started college. And one day I was sleeping. Since it was an overnight job, I was sleeping during the day, and I had this dream. And I don't remember what happened before the dream started, but in the dream, I went through a door. And on the other side of this door was this wide open field, rolling green hills, trees. And it was bright and sunny. And off in the distance, there was like a wooden structure, like kind of like a lodge, or like maybe like a general store. And I don't remember if I walked around or if like the world sort of shifted around me, but all of a sudden I was kind of farther away from the door, and there's this man walking up to me. And the way I always describe him is kind of a mid-aughts dirtball version of Beck. He had, sandy blonde hair, wire rim glasses, blue eyes. He was wearing a blue plaid shirt, khakis, and a leather duster, and he had a pork pie hat on. And he came up to me and he grabbed my upper arm really hard, and he, said essentially like, "You can't be here. What are you doing here?" And it really freaked me out. And so I kind of ripped my arm out of his hand, and I started running back to the door, which was farther off in the field now. And I got to the door, threw myself through it, and as I went through the door, I woke up in bed. And I looked down at my arm because it hurt in real life now as well, and there were already bruises, like fingertip bruises ringing my arm where he had grabbed me. And I was like, I mean, what do you do with that? I was like, that was weird.
Right.
And yeah. And I told my mom, I was like, I had this bizarre dream. Like, look at these bruises I have. And she was like, that's strange. I don't know. You're always clumsy. Maybe you bruised yourself. And I mean, it was very clearly fingertip bruises. And so I was like, that'd be a weird door to run into, but okay, cool.
Right.
And then my mom is very Catholic, so there is nothing weird going on. There's no ghosts. There is Jesus, and that is the end.
I've had experiences similar to that, and Mike Hughes talked about having a weird experience with something putting its hand on his chest, and when he woke up from the dream, there was a handprint, a four-fingered handprint, I think it was, 4 or 6-fingered handprint on his chest, like very visibly.
I remember that one, yeah.
That is very frightening. At least this was a 5-fingered hand, like a normal weirdo.
Right. So it's not without precedent. I mean, it does happen.
And like, there's always a part of you that's like, maybe I did run into something, because
Sure.
how do you file that away in your own brain, like something in a different, and I wasn't exactly raised to be open to stuff like this. So I was like, I guess I just go on about my life. And about, I don't know, a day or two later, I was at work, and it was the middle of the night. Probably 2, 3 a.m. around there. And it had been thunderstorming, and the power kept going out and coming back on. And the store policy was, whenever the power goes out, you have to lock the doors so no one can come in. So I was just kind of standing at the door with the keys in my hand, waiting for it to go out again. And where I worked was this, at the end of nothing kind of gas station. It was by an abandoned mall, an abandoned movie theater, like a car dealership that was only open part of the day, and just national forest. Like, there was nothing else out there. So we got maybe 2 or 3 customers a night at most. And so I was looking out the window at the door, and it was almost like a movie. It was like this flash of lightning, and in it I could see someone in the road walking up. And I was like, that's weird. Like, this person, if their car broke down, it must have been miles away. This is nuts. And so it
So
just
how far away? One thing I never asked you was, how far away was he when you first saw him in the light?
Oh, maybe only like a football field, like 100 yards, something like that.
Okay.
Not terribly far. And he was walking up, and it was dark out, but I kept an eye on him because I had a bad feeling about it. And once he got closer and he was sort of illuminated by the lights of the gas station, I realized that it was the same guy who had grabbed me in my dream. And now he's here, and I have no idea what to do with this information. So I just panic and turn around and run behind the counter. And he just calmly walks in. And as soon as he comes in, the power goes out and comes right back on, like maybe a second flash. And by the time it comes back on, he's right beside me, which is probably like a distance of like 6 to 8 feet. He traveled in like just like a snap of your fingers. And he grabbed me by the arm again, in the same arm. And his fingers like fitted like right into the bruises, like almost to say like, yes, that's my hand. It's the same person. And he got like kind of close to my face, and he said, "Stay away from things you don't understand." And then he let me go, and he walked out, and I didn't like watch him walk away. So I don't know if he went back up into a bolt of lightning, or if he walked away. I don't know what he did at that point. But
did he look angry when he did that? I never got it.
I would say he looked intense. I don't know if he was angry so much as he was very serious. But I didn't know what to do, so I called my mother, 3:30 in the morning, and I was like, "Mom, the guy from my dream just came into the gas station. He grabbed me. Like, I don't know what to do." And she's like, "Someone assaulted you? Like, call the police. Why are you calling me?" And I was like, "I don't know. Can we appreciate how weird this is?" And she was like, "Call the police." So I did, and they took about 2 hours to show up, which I was from a very small town. They could not have been busy,
Right.
But it did take them about 2 hours. And by then the morning general manager was in, and we all reviewed the security camera together, and he's on the camera. Like, you see him walk in. There's no hint to him that he's a ghost or something. He's not translucent. He doesn't shimmer. Like he just looks like a person. And the camera kind of cuts out when it goes black. And so it shows him like right up next to me, but it doesn't show like really how quickly that happened. And they're like, "Well, we can't really do anything at this point. He hasn't been back. We don't have an ID on him. Like, we'll keep an eye out, I guess." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I just went about my life. It was just sort of a weird thing that happened to me that I didn't bring up anymore. And then in 2013, about 7 years later, I moved about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And I was working at a movie theater up here while I was going to college. And one day I had to go clean theaters. Like, that wasn't my job, but they had sent me to go do it. And this movie had been over for like 10 minutes. And so all of it was done, all the credits. And so it's just a gray blank screen. And we have to make sure it's all empty before we turn the house lights on to clean it. And there's one guy still in the back, just staring blankly at this gray screen. And I was like, come on, guy, please leave. I'm so non-confrontational. I don't like talking to people. Like, I just wanted him to get up and leave.
Sure.
And he didn't. And I just kept staring at him from like the base of the stairs, like, please, please. And so after like 5 minutes, I was like, okay, he's clearly not leaving. So I start walking up the stairs, doing the whole spiel, sorry, sir, we need you to leave the theater, so clean it and whatever. And he's still just staring straight ahead, and he's not really acknowledging me. And I get right up to him, and he looks at me all of a sudden, and that's when I realize that it's the same man from the gas station. And he smiles at me, and then he just disappears. Like, shimmers, kind of, like, just fades away instantly. And I start yelling and like running away and tripping down the stairs, and I was like, okay, like now what do we do with this? Like, now we have these three very disparate interactions. Like, what do you even call him at this point? You can't tell people like there's this ghost that's been haunting me because he's clearly a flesh and blood person. He bruised me. Right, you can't say it's this weird dream guy, like, and he vanished in this theater. Like, I stopped telling people about like this weird encounter I had because I didn't know what to do with it. And so I just shut it out for a while. And then about 3 years later, 2016, I was at a different job cleaning offices at night. And I came out of one of the buildings I was cleaning. And about 1:30 in the morning, I got in my car and I put my hand on the shifter and I felt someone's hand like grab mine. And I looked up and he was in the passenger seat of my car. And it was same guy, same outfit, the pork pie, the duster. And he looked like moderately concerned almost. And he was, or like maybe slightly exasperated. And he was like, "Where have you been?" And I just started screaming because there's this strange man in my passenger seat of my car. and screaming, and like I like pushed the door open on my car and like stumbled out. And when I looked back, he was gone. Like the passenger door hadn't opened. Like, I didn't see him disappear that time. He was just gone. And like I called my husband and I was like, "There's a man in my car. Like, don't worry. He disappeared. He's a ghost. He's a ghost person." Like, freaking the fuck out. I don't know what to do. And
this is like, honestly my favorite one. But
it was probably my least favorite one, if I'm being honest. It's been 4 years. I still look in my passenger seat every single time I get in my car, just in case he's in there.
Sure.
It's like 4 years of trauma. But, and my husband's like, come home, I guess, And so I come home and I don't tell him like all of these experiences are the same person, because my husband was always very like, he doesn't really believe in anything paranormal. And I don't want him to think I'm nuts. And so like, I was like, yeah, I don't know, weird stuff just happens to me. And so a year later, I was at yet a different job, but I was at home and I was sleeping, and it was another night job. And so it was the middle of the day, sleeping, and I woke up, and with the knowledge that something had woken me up, but I didn't know what it was. And I wear a sleep mask, so like I pushed that off my face and sat up and looking around, and everything in my apartment is frozen. Like, my fan is mid oscillation, like my cat is jumping off the couch. He's like mid leap, frozen totally. I can't hear breathing from my husband or anything. And like, I'm not frozen. Like, I can move my entire body, but it's almost like I was in an invisible box. Like, I can only move like a couple of inches one way or another. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And like, there was this music that it was kind of like a slow, distorted tiptoe through the tulips. Like it wasn't that song, but that kind of vibe to it. And like, I mean, that's unsettling.
Yeah.
Like all of this is unsettling. And then this idiot comes around the corner of my bedroom, and it's him again. And same thing, the pork pie, the plaid shirt. And he sits on the end of my bed. And he's like, okay, we're going to do it this way because you won't stop screaming. And like, my brain is like, okay, so if I start screaming, he'll leave because he doesn't like that. And so I just start screaming. And he's like, no, stop screaming. And he's yelling at me. He's like, stop screaming, stop it. And I won't. And I just keep getting louder. And finally he just like slams out of my room, like so frustrated. And all of a sudden everything goes back to moving. And I turned and like woke my husband up, and I was like, I gave him like the most sane version of what just happened that I could. You know, I was like,
right.
There's this guy that sat on, you know, the end of the bed, and you know, my husband's like, it was a bad dream. You know, you got to calm down, go to bed. And I was like, whew, okay, all right, okay. And that had been the last time I'd seen him when I went on Strange Familiars. And that was where that story ended at the time. And then
I believe the episode of Strange Familiars is called, it's what he said to you at the gas station is what Tim titled it.
Stay away. Yeah, stay away from things you don't understand.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how long ago did you go on Strange Familiars?
I did the interview in June of 2019. I believe it came out in July of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Okay. But since then you've had more?
Yeah. Which I believe is mostly Natalie's fault.
Well, before we move on to that, I mean, one of the things I'm noticing is that, like, if you took any of these encounters and separated them into a singular encounter, it doesn't seem as weird. Like, if you just had the experience in the theater, you'd say, oh, it was a ghost. And then, you know, someone might be looking in, did somebody die in the theater or something like that? Like, each one of these has, like, its own sort of, like, someone could find a common explanation for it, was what I'm saying. But when you add them all together, it makes it very strange because they're very different type of experiences.
Yeah.
With the same entity.
Yeah, like the first one's just a dream. The second one's a real encounter. The third one is
ghostly.
I guess the third and fourth would be a ghost. But then the fifth one is like, what is that?
Yeah. Well, what is that, though?
The last one you just described could be in a hypnagogic state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me, like, oh, that's sleep paralysis.
Right. It doesn't mean that what you're experiencing, though, that you're not interacting with something real, just because it's sleep paralysis or hypnagogia.
Yeah. But you said specifically you were sitting up already, and all you did was, move to wake your husband up.
Right.
So that's unlike any sleep paralysis I've ever experienced.
No, that's why I suggested hypnagogia, because I've had things like that happen in hypnagogia.
Oh, really? Where you're mobile?
Where I'm up, I'm moving around, and I'm seeing something I know isn't there.
Interesting. Okay.
Because your part of your brain is still dreaming. So the dreaming part of your brain might have been what was communicating with him.
Probably.
What's interesting is the consistency of his appearance throughout.
Yeah, he's shown up twice without the coat, and other than that, it is exactly the same.
Did any of these things happen like while you were going through like transitions in your life?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
We were also trying to figure out season, like when whatever season was most common between them. Didn't you say the first one was in June or something? June or July?
Yeah, the first, the dream, and then him coming into the gas station were both in June.
Oh. Interesting.
So not even a liminal season. It's just summer.
all different
Well-
times of day, all different seasons. Like sometimes they're really far apart, sometimes they're really close together. Like I can't find any common thread really.
And it might be that you're dealing with something that doesn't experience time the same way, too.
Oh, definitely not.
It doesn't seem to.
It's trying.
Yeah, like when he said, like, where have you been? Like, what do you mean, where have I been? Like, it's been 3 years. Where have you been? What do you mean? You're the one that can phase in and out of my reality. I've been right here.
Okay, so then this continues sort of with Natalie.
Yes.
Oh God, is it my turn?
It sure is good.
All right, so that episode dropped on July 26th of last year. So I was minding my own business, and I was gonna go make some. I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was gonna go make some lunch, and I did, and I just I decided to put on a podcast, and I kind of spun the wheel, and it looked like a new Strange Familiars had dropped. So I went and took a look, and as soon as I saw the title, I just kind of side-eyed it. Like something about that felt familiar. It was like the tone. I'm like, I wonder if an entity said that. I kind of hope it's like some entity that imparted this phrase, because that's going to be exciting. But it sounds familiar. Something about it just really dug at the pit of me. And I go to look at the description, and it says something like, Heather has a man who walked out of her dreams and into her life. I'm like, okay, that sounds a little bit more familiar. This is strangely familiar. and I was kind of tense at that point. I'm like, I wonder what this is. I hope he's not some blonde guy, which was genuinely what went through my head at that point. So I was kind of already tensed about a situation like that. Like, and I get everything together, and I sit down with a nice sandwich, and I put it on, and like a minute into it, I just tossed my phone across the table and stood up and stood in the middle of the kitchen going, there's no way. There's what? No, there's no way. No. Just from her description, it was too much. And it took me 5 whole hours to pick it back up and actually listen to it. And I just like muscled my way through it. And it was harrowing.
And why did it strike you like that?
Her description was the only thing that was weird. Like throughout every description, he wears the same thing, but the way he looks, the way he dresses, just the style of him, the way he speaks, his mannerisms were all super familiar to me, because there had been a guy appearing in my dreams, and potentially twice, not in dreams, that fit that description almost exactly, in all the way. In fact, sometimes absolutely exactly, including the shirt. And I've been documenting my dreams pretty religiously for, I want to say, like, 16 years. I would at least 14 of those years has been really down to the detail, as well as like strange experiences, synchronicities, that kind of thing. So, I could go back and actually, cross-reference my dreams to Heather's description, but it was weirder than that. So this this episode dropped exactly 6 days after I had just seen Beck in Chula Vista. So that was already fresh on my mind. Beck was already fresh on my mind. 6 days, that's all it was. It wasn't even a week. So it was just like kind of the synchronicity on top of it being this very accurate description. And I had no idea how to reconcile that. I still don't. It's most of the time. So that's when I went on to the Strange Familiars group, and I've noticed a lot of people who guest on there don't usually come on there, and I was ecstatic when Heather appeared in one of the threads about her. Yeah, I think it was the thread that Tim started. So I started messaging, So we were able to sort of compare notes. And I think the first impression was, no, this can't be the same entity. But it has just sort of grown from there. It's had over a year to grow. Lots of things have happened, and I tried to take notes on each of those occurrences.
Well, what were your first experiences with this entity?
Personally, mine started in 2004. It was a dream that sort of just wrote off as, I don't know. It was like an initiation dream. I've been dreaming and having a lot of strange experiences my whole life, which I won't get into now, but mostly I have a very rational kind of atheistic bent to things. So it was something that it rocked my world, because this guy comes up to me in the dream in a leather duster down to his knees, and he has like khaki pants. I have no idea what his shirt was because it was dark in the dream, but it was a dream that was so realistic that I could feel the dampness on my skin. It was cold air. It was like just after a rain. I could feel the heaviness of my, standing on concrete outside of a store in a parking lot. And he comes up and he says, "You don't know me, but I know you." And then he just launches into this whole thing about how he wants me to go to Chicago O'Hare Airport, and he's gonna fly me there from Houston, because that's where I lived at the time. And my friend was with. He was just kind of like going with it, and that's how it started. And we went on this just crazy adventure of like chasing down this person who was. He didn't say what this person was, but so like my interpretation was an alien. And I'm like, well, if that's an alien, he must be an alien, because he's really strange. There's something about him. I just don't know what it is, like really intense eyes. And but the only difference at that point was that he had chestnut hair. It was like shaggy chestnut brown hair. He looked kind of like a hobo, unshaved for 3 weeks. And at the end of the dream, I started getting lucid. And at that point, it was like my brain was understanding that this entity felt unlike any dream person I had ever had. He felt intrusive, and it was starting to I was starting to freak out. Everything about me was like, this isn't right. Something's not right here. So I turned around and I start asking him questions on a phone, because he calls into this house he has us staying at. And I'm like, "What are you? And are you, what do you look like?" And he just would give really vague answers. I asked him his name, and he gave me like some garbled name that didn't sound real. It just sounded like he was giving me whatever. Just to like, he seemed really shocked that I was asking him questions, which could be a dream person thing. I know in lucid dreams, meeting yourself can be a very intense thing, but this felt genuinely intrusive, like something off. And then the last thing I asked him was, "Will I see you again?" Because I had a feeling that this was not an isolated thing. And he said yes. And then I woke up and frantically told my boyfriend at the time, and started writing it down. And it was so real that when I woke up, I felt I was shivering from the cold, even though I was waking up in September in Houston and it was like 85 degrees out. So it was just a very intense, something I could just write off as a dream. But that kickstarted everything. And from there, it was just like I didn't know about synchronicity at the time. Like, this was a big learning experience for me. Because all of these things were happening. I started documenting them because I liked the sciences at the time. I was working at the Science Museum. It was just wild. Like, it was, I didn't know what to make of it. I started going on paranormal forums or alien forums, trying to figure out if other people had this experience. And in 2005, my then boyfriend and I would sit down with a Ouija board, and we're like, let's try to contact these beings that are clearly in my unconscious mind and see if we can get anything, or just see where it goes. It sounds like a fun thing to do. It sounds like a good creative project. Maybe we can write something. That's what our whole plan was to dictate it, write it down, and get stories from it. And the entity, that one was very stilted. I mean, I know it's a Ouija, it's a talking board anyway, but it was always kind of had that tone, like it had that tone of warning, like you need to stay away from this. It's not going to be good for you. You need to know what you're getting into. That was like the message over and over at first. I'm like, but I like you. You're cool in dreams. We're going on like adventures and stuff. I don't see what the problem is. even though, he was at least vaguely terrifying in the dreams. And then in 2005, I had a dream amidst all of the Ouija stuff. I had another really powerful dream, and he was driving a car, and I looked over at him, and his hair just turned dirty blonde, like right in front of me, and I'm like, oh, you're going to be dirty blonde now? And he's just like turns and smiles at me. And he switched out, because he used to wear sunglasses, he switched out the sunglasses to these wireframe glasses, so he looked like this hilarious hipster. And the way I would have described him was kind of going from like a Jim Morrison type to like a Beck type. Like he like really elfin looking was the way I would describe him. And he always kind of reminded me of a musician, so those were the two that I would default to as far as like a description, kind of like the full lips and the square jaw and that kind of thing. But so his face would stay the same. His facial hair might change, the length of his hair, color of his hair changed, but he was pretty consistently blonde past that point. And then other entities got introduced along the way, like these friends of his, and all of them had that feeling like this really alien sort of. I didn't know about it at the time, but I finally picked up 3 years into it. I picked up Mothman Prophecies and read about Indrid Cold, and I was just horrified because that was really similar. That whole description of Indrid Cold really reminded me of him.
So what year was it that he turned blonde?
That was, I have it down to the date. It was like I think it was in July. It was July of 2005.
And Heather, when did you first see him?
June of 2006.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And also that he switched from sunglasses. He started wearing the sunglasses. I don't know. It was like I didn't know about Good Omens at the time, but you know how the Crawley or whatever his name is wears the sunglasses because his eyes are too weird. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a situation like that because his eyes were too intense, so he would wear something to make them less intense. But then he downgraded to like these wireframe glasses. That's what really freaked me out. That was in Heather's experience, and I have art that Heather's seen that I've done with those glasses.
Well, also, you said later once he turned blonde, he looked more like Beck, right?
His face didn't change. I'd say he looks like Beck to me because of the full lips and the elfin features. He just looks very elfin. He has like widely spaced eyes and like the little nose and just like he looks like an elf to me. So nothing changed about his facial structure. It was just his hair color, really.
Okay, all right.
His height stayed the same. His style never changed.
I mean, being a fan of Beck, though, I wonder if that's why that appearance was chosen.
I was sort of peripherally engaged with Beck stuff. Like, I was never a big fan. I liked his stuff. So it would seem kind of strange that he chose it. I didn't really look at him and go, he looks like the spitting image of Beck. He just doesn't to me. He looks like a kind of a conglomeration. It's just that they both look elfin, I guess. But he's taller and he's like bonier and like quite a bit bonier. That's the way I would describe him.
Okay.
Bigger eyes. He has very different eyes, actually. His eye shape to me is very different than Beck's. And when I think of Beck, I think of his eyes more than anything, but like the facial structure is pretty similar.
Okay.
Heather, does that make sense? You've talked about
it. So.
Okay. We've talked about him looking like what's his name in Twilight?
Oh God. Oh. It's Jackson Rathbone.
Yeah, that guy. He looks a lot like him too.
He does.
Like if you smashed him and Jim Morrison and Beck together, you would get this guy. I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So beyond that, what happened? What comes next?
Well, I mean, this went on for so long. Oh my God, this is like 14 years. So, I don't have clear cut like he just came out of. There was one incident. I had a lot of incidences that were very strange with other people that did not look like him. That were just truly bizarre. I recently talked to my friend that was there to witness them with me, but there was one specifically that I really can't brush aside. There was something extremely weird about this experience that, I could try to file it under mundane, but it was too weird. So my now friend and then boyfriend, we lived in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and we would escape the heat by going to Cloudcroft, which is this tiny little town in the mountains next to an observatory. And so we went up there one day just on a whim because it was, I don't know, probably like 110 degrees down in the desert. So
wow.
Yeah, so we get up there and it's still like, 90, 95 degrees, but it's a change. So we're up in the trees, we're going to do some hiking and just enjoy it for the day. So we get to, first thing, we get to the only diner that seems to be open in the town that day. I think it was like a Tuesday, so it didn't make a lot of sense. And we walk in, and to back up a little bit, I had gotten so freaked out. This was in 2007, I think. I could get you the date, but it's either 2006 or 2007. And it was 2006. This was June 11th. So we go into this diner, and I'm talking about how I just put a stop to all of this because it was getting way too intense. I didn't really want to lose my mind. It just kind of felt like I was on the brink of insanity. And my boyfriend at the time was also really in the thick of this because he was also experiencing a lot of this stuff. And Alamogordo was truly a weird experience. Like, I think nothing has topped all of the bizarreness that occurred to us there. Like, really John Keel type stuff. But I put a stop to him. Like, you know what? I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to pay attention to the dreams. I'm going to stop documenting them. I'm not going to give them the time of day because this is too much for me. And then we went up to do that. And I was talking about it on the way. And we get into this diner. And I'm like, I kind of miss it though. Like, there's that seductiveness of like synchronicity. It gives you meaning and stuff. And as I'm blathering about this, the jukebox stops whatever and starts playing whatever the song is, The Dream of You by the Everly Brothers.
Okay.
Do you know what song I'm talking about?
Not at all.
Like, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream.
Not a clue.
Okay, well, it's by the Everly Brothers. It's creepy anyway. Like, I didn't know David Lynch stuff at the time, but it was like a total Twin Peaks scene, which I would find out later. Okay. It just stops and it starts playing this kind of in the middle of the song and just picks up. And we're standing there staring at each other like, huh? Because I was just talking about the dream specifically. And we're like, okay, that's funny. And then it just stopped and just went to another song out of nowhere. Like, nobody was playing with the jukebox. It didn't make any sense. So we just get our food and leave. Like, that's nice. And we go to the general store, which is this wooden, like, I think you can still find photos of it. It was like this truly mid-19th century kind of building. And we go there, we get some jerky, we go outside. We're sitting in my boyfriend's car. And I think he brought my attention to this guy because I was like focused on something else. I think I was texting somebody or something. And he's just like kind of nudges me. He's like, check out this guy. And I look up and there's this guy staring at us. And he has on like this kind of rancher hat. He looks like a hipster, but he looks like a cowboy, like a bong cowboy or something. And he has this like beautiful blonde hair that's like long. And he looked unreal. He looked like a Lord of the Rings elf. Standing there with like this deer hide duster. Mind you, it's 90, 95 degrees out, and he's in full regalia with this beautiful duster. Like, it looked deer hide. I am positive he had plaid on. I just don't remember what color. So he had like this plaid button-up shirt underneath it. So he looked, cowboyish. Right. The only thing is he was like with this normal-looking guy who had like a chef hat on. So he was clearly from the restaurant, the diner or something. He was, Hispanic. They looked like this odd couple, but this guy would not stop staring at us. I have no idea what was going on, but he looked so much like this guy in my dreams that is why my friend brought my attention to him in the first place. But he's staring at us with these intense, big blue eyes, just like boring into both. He was looking at my boyfriend, and then when my attention got brought to him, he wouldn't stop looking at me, and he would not stop making eye contact, which normally would make me look away because it's too intense and too intimidating, but I just couldn't stop staring at him with like jerky hanging out of my mouth because I couldn't even, I was just like hypnotized by him. And he was walking around, and the whole time he's walking by the vehicle they came out of, and then he goes into the general store and comes back out. And as soon as he came back out, he was staring right back at me. And he wouldn't stop grinning. The whole time he's got this wide grin on his face. And we're just like, you know what, we're gonna go. We're just gonna go. And we just finally break out of it and start driving. And for like the next 3 hours, we couldn't stop talking about it off and on. We just didn't know what happened. It sounds so mundane, but there was just something about it, and I still remember it really clearly, like the feeling, like. And my friend was not really into that kind of strange stuff, and I'd never seen him affected like that. So this is the only like encounter that, you know, that sounds kind of weak by comparison to Heather's, but it left a very big impression on me. I know I went home and told a lot of people about it, so I have good documentation of it. And yeah, from there it just kept going as far as dreams, over and over and over, the same dude in the dreams over and over and over. For, you know, the spans 14 years. It just doesn't stop. Up until I heard Heather's episode, so I probably had a recent dream. You know, and in between all of that stuff, there were friends that would that had appeared. I didn't tell them about this guy, and one of them had him walk right into her dream. She was having a dream about her old family house, and she was like working through personal stuff in the dream. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out of the. She contacted me right after the dream, kind of panicking. She was like, "I think you'll know about this. This seems like something you would experience." And she describes this guy with shaggy blonde hair walking out, wireframe glasses. The only thing he was wearing a turtleneck. And he starts talking to her about, you should connect with nature more and all of this stuff. But he was intimidating and really tall. She described him as skinny. I have that somewhere like carefully documented too. And I'm just sitting there while she's telling me like, I don't know what to do with this. That scared me. Because she didn't know anything about him. I mean, I don't know how I would have even unconsciously communicated this guy to her. So it was kind of distressing.
Right.
It was fascinating, but worrisome. And then I had another friend who also started having visions, waking visions during meditation of him. And actually ended up drawing like a monkey version, because we would say he reminds us of a monkey or something like that. So it's kind of like this joke version with him like a tail and kind of a monkey face. Oh. But he's got the button-up shirt, the wireframe glasses, the kind of shaggy wavy hair, and he's holding his hand up like stop, like, you know, he's got like that austere, angry expression, like everything I attribute to this guy. And Heather can weigh in on that because she's seen it.
Yeah, he does look a lot like him. I mean, a monkey version of him, but if he was a monkey,
it's a caricature of the monkey.
So wait, what year did your friend see him when he was wearing a turtleneck?
I want to say 2013 or 2014. I'm gonna have to pull it up, but yeah, it's somewhere around there.
I'm just glad he stayed away during his like Steve Jobs phase, because like, oh my god, if he showed up in a turtleneck,
but that was what was strange. So everything about him was like the guy that I had been seeing, but I'd never seen him in a turtleneck to my knowledge. And she said that was something that she attributed to somebody that she knew that she'd had a really hard time with. Everything else about him, including what he said to her, seemed like this guy. But then he was wearing a turtleneck that meant something to her specifically.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the only discrepancy, but it was also a very meaningful one.
Right, but it also suggests some element of procreation as well.
Yeah, exactly. It was in 2011, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Is it? Oh no, sorry, no, it was 2014. I was right. Okay.
So you two started talking on the Strange Familiars group.
Yeah, after that, after my initial freak out, and started comparing notes.
And?
Well, I'm sure Heather remembers this as well as I do. There was one night when I think we were just messaging back and forth. I'd asked a question, and Heather started answering it, and then I have it pulled up here. She says something like, "So, I'm avoiding this, but I think I just saw him." So I have it written here because I have an actual message here. Do you remember that, Heather? You can tell it.
No, you haven't gotten far enough into it for me to know which.
It was the first time you saw whatever at your work in the parking lot after we started talking. That one. It was in September, I think, or August of last year.
Yeah, it was one of those because it looked like it was like turning to fall, but I was leaving work, and I work in this building that's sort of in the woods. It's not like super remote or anything. It's just down a long drive surrounded by woods, and it's a metal shop. So when the shift is over, everybody leaves at the same time. So I was leaving in like a group of people, and there's like 3 sections of the parking lot, and they just get farther and farther towards the woods. And I was walking with my son who works with me, and I looked up, and there he was, the guy. He was like at the edge of the woods in the parking lot. And I didn't know what to do. And I tried to just keep walking, and it didn't seem like anybody else noticed him. Like I know my son didn't. And as I was looking at him, he just waved, like kind of in a friendly way, and then turned around and walked off into the woods. He didn't stop to talk or anything. He just waved like, "Hi, how are you doing?" and then walked into the woods like a weirdo.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that message, I just got like this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, because on my end of things, we had just been talking about how to get him to go away or something like that. It was basically just that he might be done. He might, just go away. So you don't have to worry about it. But if you want him to go away, here's this things you might want to try. And I was on my end. I was like getting frustrated because I had no clarity. I'm like, is this the same entity? Is this possible? I was going through a lot of just existential stuff as a result of hearing this episode and Heather's experiences and how close they were, getting kind of caught up on the discrepancies. So I was like, okay, if you're the real deal. I was just kind of like allowed to the room like a crazy person, I guess. Like it just to my room while I'm meditating, like, okay, if you're real and if you're listening, I want you to try this. If you really want Heather to talk to you, you got to be nice. You got to be friendly. You need to approach in a place that at least has some people around. I have it written down somewhere what I said during that meditation, but it was basically that, like, go to a public place and be nice, be friendly, keep your distance, don't grab, just basic stuff that should be obvious, but apparently not to something like that. Like, that will help gain trust. It's a starting point. And I'm like, well, this is never gonna work. And that was, I think that was the afternoon before that, like not that same day, but the day before that I did that. And then that was the next night, like late at night.
Huh. Okay. So you basically summoned it for her.
Maybe it's nothing.
You summoned it to go visit Heather.
I mean, the thing is, they were so close together in time, it was just jarring. Like, I really freaked out. I kind of panicked that night. Like, is this possible? Like, is it telepathy? How does this work? What?
And he followed your advice. He kept his distance. He was friendly.
Like, to the letter.
Yeah. I didn't scream, so, like, it was sound advice.
Now, you said your son was with you at the time?
Yeah, we were walking to my car after work.
Did he see it?
No, but he was looking down at his phone.
Ah, okay.
But nobody else seemed to
notice.
I mean, there was 15, 20 people, like, all kind of walking around. Nobody else seemed to be like, there is a man in the woods. I seemed to be the only person like, oh dear, oh goodness.
Yeah, so I mean, you could just write this stuff off as we're being too imaginative or something's off, but like, that to me it was too much. It was too much to just ignore. And it ended up happening again in a different context, more or less. At least it seemed to.
Okay.
And that was, let me get the date for you. So, let's see, I've got the details here. Okay, so it was a couple more months. It was at the end of November. I think it was 2 days before, because we'd had kind of like this dead zone, like, where nothing was happening. And so I was wondering if it was over. Like, I don't know if I think I'd had dreams. I'd have to look to see. I don't know if I had any dreams specifically with him at that point. I think I must have, at least a couple. But, dreams being dreams, I don't really, wasn't going to trust that. And it wasn't involving Heather. So I just, kind of fell back on that. This can't be, we must be experiencing our own separate things. This isn't a thing. So I was like, all right. So here's the other thing. You visit me in dreams all the time. This is me doing the meditation thing again. This would have been November. It was right around Thanksgiving, like November 25th or 26th, because I had 2 days alone. So I was meditating and instructing, like, okay, so the thing that works on me, since you're in dreams a lot, is that you that's how you communicate with me, and it's not scary. Like, well, it can be, but it's definitely like, it's very different than if something were showing up at random in my personal space. So why don't you try that? Why don't you try to engage Heather in a dream in a very obvious way again? Like, that's how it started. Why not do that again? And be helpful, like you are with me, with whatever. That's all I said. That was like the whole end of it, like, just to see what might happen, throw it out there. And again, this is like, right around Thanksgiving. And then on November 30th, Heather got sick with a fever while she was visiting her parents, I guess. Do you remember how that went?
I do. The lake cabin fever dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. In it, I had fallen asleep on the couch at my parents' house, and I had this strange dream where I was at a lake house that I'd never seen before, and there was a bunch of people I knew in this lake house, and something kept killing everybody. But I'd been playing a lot of video games, and so, like, in the dream I was able to, like, reload a previous save and like start back when everybody was alive and try to figure out what it is that's killing them. Mm-hmm. And so I kept failing whatever it was, and I don't remember if I knew what it was, or if I could see what it was, or if it was just I would just find people dead. I don't really remember that part, but I just, whatever it was, kept getting into the house and killing everybody. And I was so frustrated and scared that I wasn't going to be able to save everyone. And I tried, like, barring the doors. I tried, like, finding guns. I tried, like, all this stuff. And at one point in the dream, there was this blonde guy with wire rimmed glasses, and it was a dream. So I wasn't like, oh, it's him. in dream logic, it just, my brain folded him into the background of like, I know everybody else in this house. This is also a friend of mine that's talking to me. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, wait. But it was this, it was the guy. And he was like, the reason you can't keep it from getting in the house is that it's already in the house. It's in the attic. And I was like, oh, thank you. And he was like, yeah, no problem. And I was like, are you going to go show me where? And he was like, no, I'm not going up there. And I was like, what? Magic man from my dream, please show me the scary thing in the attic. He's like, oh no, I'll stay here, thank you, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. All right. And I went up to the attic and he followed me. He did not go into the attic, but he did follow me, I guess, to make sure I didn't get dead. But in the attic was this, like, I usually say get deaded because it's a stupid thing my husband and I say, and I stopped myself right on the precipice of saying it. It still came out stupid, though. Yeah, he wanted to make sure I didn't get deaded. But I went up to the attic, and there was this, like, if you've seen Fern Gully, it was Hexus, this oil monster. It's like a tar demon in the attic, and it's, obviously it's like this nightmare engine that's like, whatever. But I think he handed me a shotgun, and he was like, you should try shooting it. And I was like, thank you, I guess. And so I shot
nice.
it, right? You should try shooting at it. But so I shot it, and I ended up being able to kill it, and I was like, thank you. And he had gone at that point, I think, and I woke up, and I was like, that was a weird dream. And then it like just slowly sort of like dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, it was him. Oh, Jesus. And so I picked up my phone and I was like, Natalie, oh my God. Like, it may be a fever dream, but it seems relevant.
Yeah, no, it was another one of those shocker moments, but by then I wasn't having an existential crisis about it, at least, so.
That's good.
I don't know. I'm so used to them.
And what year was that?
That was just last year during Thanksgiving, so we're coming up on a year.
Yeah.
All right.
And so but it didn't stop there. Like, I didn't do any, so that was the last of my like intervention. And then Heather had 2 more. But I'm just trying to take a look because there was one that was almost shared or seemed shared, just in the like the general mood of it. But we have, okay. So in December, Heather, that's when you had the diner dream.
Oh, okay. So I don't remember a lot of it. I remember that I was in a diner, your classic 50s, chrome and red leather and glass diner. And it's not cohesive at all. It's just these flashes that I remember. And at the time, I didn't know what Natalie looked like. So I didn't actually realize that she was in it until after. But there was this woman in there who kept kind of showing up. And I remember being at the table with the guy. And the only part, I know we talked for a while, but the only thing I remember is at one point he like put his hand on my arm. And I think he did that so that I would remember that part because he felt that was important. And he had to like touch me to like anchor me to remember it. But he touched my arm and he said, you have to remember this when you wake up. It wasn't me in the theater. And like, I had no idea what that meant until I woke up. And looking back, that's the only encounter that's truly different from the other ones.
Yeah.
Like, he usually shows up, he's close to me, he talks to me, like he'll touch me. But the one in the theater, he just smiled and disappeared. Like, he didn't try to interact with me. and he was in this dream telling me that wasn't actually him.
Which means what, I wonder?
Well, we have a theory.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
so you know how I said that there are multiples that I got introduced to. So winding all the way back to 2005 during our talking board sessions, being my friend and I, we were introduced early on when this guy was like, you know what, I'm having a hard time communicating through this board thing. Like, this is very difficult. Like, he was actually describing the difficulty through brains and stuff like that. It was weird. And he's like, I know somebody who can do it better. I have, I don't know how he introduced this being, but it ended up being like this messenger servant. And it gave us a name, like right off the bat. And this thing could communicate much better, but it was also just an insufferable, terrifying trickster type of entity. So really smart, really on the ball, told us a lot of stuff very quickly, but just had this attitude of like everything it did for us was going to be, paid for in various tricks. And that is actually when a lot of the really, really weird stuff happened that eventually made me want to stop it in 2006. So it was the introduction of that entity and its propensity for shape-shifting and doppelgangering and that kind of thing, especially in dreams, that really shook me up and made me feel a lot crazier.
Okay.
So when initially when I heard Heather's stories, that actually did stand out to me. Like I thought of that theater scene. I'm like, maybe they're one and the same entity. I guess that's possible. Maybe it's the same entity, but like different parts of it, or whatever is going on there. Because that really reminds me of that entity with that name. So it seems to track. I don't know, but it's strange that I had two of them and one was known for doing that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So after the, what happened? What was the next event after the dream in the diner?
So the next one would have been, it happened right at the beginning of the year. So this was in January. And I had a dream that this entity guy showed up in my kitchen in San Diego. Very clear. I remember it like it happened. And he had the pork pie, but it looked like he had crumpled it up, like out of anger, and put it back on his head. He was extremely frustrated about something I couldn't understand. I know it had something to do with Heather and like trying to talk or something like that. I was not getting a clear answers, and I was getting really frustrated at him, so I was yelling at him, and it was just kind of like this yelling match, and then it just ended. And then the next day, I did not tell Heather this dream. The next day, Heather just sort of relays this dream. I don't know if you remember this, Heather. It was you said you had like this kind of fitful dream state without any real visuals, where it felt like that guy was yelling at you in frustration. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that specifically, but I mean,
You said it was really brief.
yeah. If it was that long ago and it was just, I wouldn't remember it probably. I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
You were on cold medicine, and he was yelling at you because you were on cold medicine and you wouldn't wake up enough to talk to him. And he was in the room. You said he was in the room.
Yeah, he was really mad about that.
Yeah. That's what
I forgot about that. I mean, if I had known we had a meeting that day, I wouldn't have taken so much NyQuil, but he didn't tell me.
Yeah, he's not good about announcing his presence.
He just show up the next day, guy. Like, wait till I'm not on NyQuil.
And my dream is all about, I'm looking it over, and my dream is about him being frustrated that you wouldn't talk to him or something like that.
Honestly, I never talked to him, so I don't know what he's frustrated about.
So the next one was, okay, so cutting forward a little bit. I was in San Diego. I was not able to make rent anymore because it's exorbitant living prices in California. And it just so happened that there was an apartment that opened up here in the same place as Heather, which was really, really weird. everything just sort of fell into place. I scraped money together and moved 2,800 miles just to live here, which is, worked out better. It's at least the cost of living is great. But so I was moving in last May, and that's when Heather had another dream that I still don't know what it means, but it has a really cool quote in it. And I don't know, do you remember what the quote is? I have it in front of me, just in case.
It's something like, stop trying to shape it. The shape is already determined, or something like that.
Yeah, that's more or less. Yeah, the shape is already laid out. Just let it happen.
Yeah, something like that.
And then he just disappeared, but before he disappeared, he said that thing to you. Do you remember what he said?
No, all I remember was the shape thing.
So you said you met him in like this dream, the misty...
the Borderlands.
Yeah, the Borderlands. And right before he tells you that, and then right before he turns to leave and just like disappears, he's like, well, you're not screaming. That's different.
Oh, yeah! Like, I can if you want me to. Like, anytime, guy.
So that's pretty much where it leaves off as far as I know with the dreams, because I moved out here and a number of other strange things have happened since then.
Okay, so what else has happened since then?
I don't know where are the highlights of this.
How do you distill that?
I mean, there's been plenty of peripheral stuff that isn't necessarily directly involving this entity, but there was one recent, before I get into the real weird kind of like spin-off on this, there was a recent incident in a parking lot, the same parking lot. I'll let you take that one away.
Don't make me tell the story.
This was all yours.
Okay. All right. Fine. So, when was that? It was a couple weeks ago. Whatever. Second week of October. I was walking out to my car after work, and I felt like someone was watching me, and which isn't that abnormal. There's a bunch of people around, but I looked up, and sitting beside the driver's side door of my car was this very bizarre looking black and white cat. And it was much bigger than a house cat really should be. But it was very clearly just a house cat. Like, it wasn't, a mountain lion or something. It was just a black and white house cat, but it was much bigger than normal. And I personally love cats. Like, I'm one of those really annoying people that every time I see one, I have to talk to it and I have to go over to it. But like, there's something about this cat that just terrified me. Like, I froze mid-walk, and I had to really pep talk myself into taking another step. Like, my whole body was cold. I was shaking, and it was just staring at me. Like, I locked eyes with this cat. And again, like, I work in the middle of the woods. Like, there really shouldn't be house cats out there, but I don't know. I've seen weirder, and something about that cat just shut my whole body down. And I finally like forced myself to keep walking, and like, I was talking myself through it. I was like, it's a cat, Heather. You have to keep walking because it's a cat. It's not going to kill you. Like, it's a cat. Like, just keep moving. And so like I tried to, hit the unlock button on my keys to because it's loud and it's right next to the car, and I was hoping that would kind of scare it off, and it didn't. And I just kept hitting the button, like, come on. And then I hit the lock button because it's a loud beep, and that didn't like phase it at all. And I was like, please, come on. And like, I got closer and closer, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to get to my car door. I'm too afraid of this cat. and like, and I'm looking around, like, I'm just praying that none of my coworkers see me having this like panic attack stare down with a house cat. Like, because I'm a fully grown woman, and so I should not be doing this. And I'm like hyperventilating, and like I get within a couple of feet of my car, and it just sort of like finally stands up on all fours and casually saunters around to the other side of my car, and I was like, oh, thank God. And I open my car door, and I can kind of see it on the other side of my car, like through the windows, and it's by the passenger seat now. And there was this woman that I work with who had parked a couple of spots down from me, and she had gotten up to her car, and she saw the cat, and she did the same thing I did. She like froze mid-step and just started staring at this cat. And she didn't move, and I was kind of watching her for a while, because this is not a normal reaction to a house cat.
Right.
Like, nobody has the terror freeze like for a cat. And this woman, and she has like her keys out, and she's just staring like a statue. And then she takes like a couple of flailing steps backward, like panicky away from this cat. And she started looking around to like other people, like to see if someone was going to come like save her. And again, the cat is not advancing on her. It's just sitting there by my passenger side of my car. And at this point I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I'm good. Thank you very much, everybody. And I got in my car and I turned it on, and I put it in reverse, and I had this bizarre wave come over me as I was driving away. And like, I just left that poor woman there with that demon cat, and I did not check my rear view to see like maybe it mauled her. I don't know. It might have. Who cares? But like, I was driving away, and I had this, I don't know, my brain went into this weird state where I couldn't control it. And out of my mouth, I just kept saying, like, I get it now. I get it. I'm sorry. I get it. I get it now. No idea what that means. No idea who I was talking to. Like, no idea where it was coming from. And I could not control it. And it took me, like, it takes about a half-hour drive home. And it took me a good halfway, like 15 minutes home, to stop saying it and to, like, calm my body down. And it's a cat. Like, what is that?
But you didn't describe what the cat looked like either.
No.
I mean, large, but
it was way too big for a cat. Not like, I mean, it wasn't like a 5 foot tall cat. It was, it probably, I'm about 5'7". It probably came up sitting down on its hind legs. Its head came up a little past my knees, which is pretty tall for a cat.
it's like one of those Savannah cats, right?
Yeah, it was like that size. And it had these blue eyes that were way too big. Like, not like a cartoon character, but to the point where looking at it, you were like, you're like, oh, that is very unsettling. Why is that cat's eyes so big? I do not like that. That's a no from me. And it had like half of its face was black and the other half was white. And then its body was half black, half white, but kind of the opposite of the face. And then it had like opposite colored feet. So it wasn't like spotted. It was sort of like in these big swaths of half and half. It's a very strange looking cat.
Huh.
Right. So there's a little bit that goes to that. There's backstory to that because I had made a discovery on September 5th that I will eventually get into. So I was talking to people prior in the day, and one of them mentioned having dreams about a cat related to an entity. And so that had already been happening, and other things related to this that Heather had no idea about, of course. But also, when she told me the description of this cat, I immediately thought of 3 different dreams I'd had where I thought the entity was showing up as a cat, but like, I don't know how to, differentiate at that point. It's a dream. It's a cat in a dream. It's not like the cat is wearing wireframe glasses and a duster. So I don't have a lot to go by other than like the general essence or vibe of it and the behavior. But one of the dreams specifically from September 15th of 2018, I describe a cat with a half black, face, half white face, and then corresponding checker pattern markings on the body. So if you imagine just like a large checkerboard from the face down, kind of like, like that, like the swatches back and forth. And it was trying to steal my chocolate, and it just felt like this trickster entity. It had gigantic blue eyes. I'm looking at the description right now.
Wow.
So, but that same cat would often be just black with the giant blue eyes, but also unnaturally huge, for a cat. I mean, like, you could imagine a cat that large, but it just seems kind of unnatural in the dreams. So, again, maybe nothing, but that's really, really specific.
Yeah. And when you saw the thing initially at the gas station, that other people saw that on the film, the security footage. And of course, that doesn't unfortunately exist anymore, does it?
No. No, not at all.
Yeah, and see, I only had my friend with in Cloudcroft, and that was in 2006. We don't have photos or anything like that, and I don't have them here. But, it's mostly just been really wild synchronicities. A lot of my stuff is a sort of winding road to musicians and in really improbable circumstances that, I can't get into here. So it's less like Heather seems to get like the really condensed, crazy manifestations, and I get like the carefully constructed dreams and synchronicities. And that's where our difference is. But it seems like the same entity is able to communicate back and forth or whatever that is. I don't know. It's really pretty crazy making. It's very difficult to deal with.
Heather, what do you make of the first thing it told you about not... what was the thing Tim named the show?
Oh, stay away from things you don't understand.
Yeah.
I've always felt kind of, I don't know, weird about that, because ever since then, like, I'm not trying to go near things I don't understand. Like, you keep finding me, like, leave me alone. I'm trying. And you're the one that keeps popping up into my car and just being like, no, really, really stay away. I'm like, okay, fine. Yes. I'm trying to live a normal life.
He is the things you don't understand.
Yes. And he will not then stay away. Like, we've talked before, like Natalie and I, about how it's probably due to, I probably do a lot of like wandering when I'm asleep. I often wake up feeling like I've been somewhere for a while, like I've gone somewhere, and like my I was asleep for 7 hours and I feel like it's been 10 years.
Right.
And so like it's probably him trying to like control the unconscious part of me that I can't control, but like I'm not doing anything specifically like to enhance that or make it worse. And I think he's trying to warn me that I need to get a handle on myself before I find something worse or bring something worse back. And like, I appreciate the warning from him, but also if he doesn't then tell me how to do that, it's just nonsense to me.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing is, because it's terrifying to be in his presence. Mm-hmm. It's you can't really calm down and get a nice lesson from him.
Did you have any weird experiences prior to all this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been seeing weird stuff before I had memories, yeah.
Okay, all right. So this wasn't like the start of a set of weird stuff. You were already sort of tuned into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, we're almost out of time, but we're going to continue talking about this in the Patreon segment. And I thank you for sharing this. I know it's not, really your favorite subject, Heather.
No, I prefer to just kind of ignore it, but it's fine.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I want to take a moment here to give a shout out to all my patrons. All of you help make this show possible. I want to give a special shout out to those of you pledging $10 or more: Frank Earl, Nagatha Christie, Patricia W., Barbara Fisher, Will Powell, Big Boy Limina, Craig Parmenter, Walker, Joanna Rojas, Maddie, Dale Potter, David Moore, Vincent Treewell, The Great Change, Sam Sharon, Stone Wilderness, Luke Osborne, Becky Trainer, Rob Drummond, Alex Whitcomb, Edu Camahort, Tactical Therapist, Janet Bunderson, 36 Dingo, Taylor, Jennifer Campbell, American Rambler, Kevin, Matthew Sproul, John Rutledge Foster, Eric Citron, Andy McNamara, Sasha Jorg, Matthias Sunby, Dominic O'Malley, Christopher Vaughn, Super Inframan, Riker and Stark, Tim, J. Otto Bullitt, Kevin Shrek, Jose A., Roger Gonzalez, Craig Cicernos, Ray Benedetto, Linz Jackson K., Ellison Cook, Alfred Tuttle, James Lattimore, Patricia Giaquinta, William Lovelace, Mark Brady, and Carla Mahoney. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible. There is a Patreon-only segment to this conversation. If you enjoy what you've heard so far, there's some more weirdness to follow if you're a Patreon. And if you're not a Patreon, it's only $3 a month. Just go to whereDidTheRoadGo.com and click on the Patreon link, or go to patreon.com/ASCATH, and you get numerous extra pieces per month, and it helps out the show a lot. I had a couple of messages here I wanted to read, something I should probably do more often, read these on the air. This message comes from Chris Knowles. I don't know if it's the same Chris Knowles we were talking about last week or not, but he said he's talking about the show that I was talking about, the mechanism that I had sort of theorized about, where some of these events happen in the future and then we get the effects of them in the past. And he says, the latest podcast about the mechanism reminded me of something I had heard many years ago, just a small echo on my mind. It was what you said about events sending effects back in time and being experienced as paranormal phenomena, Bridges and Mothman especially. It reminded me of Terence McKenna doing a spoken word record with the UK group The Shaman in the early 1990s. He said the lyrics and the part that bring up your mechanism, the basic intuition that the universe seeks closure in a kind of omega point of transcendence is confirmed. It's almost as though this object in hyperspace, glittering in hyperspace, throws off reflections of itself which actually ricochet into the past. It's not quite the same thing, but the idea that phenomena cause temporal ripples flying into the past stuck out. Maybe there's something going on that needs further investigation and pondering. And I would agree. I mean, I presented that idea, and I'm continuing to modify and arrange it, but I really do think there is something to it. Otherwise, I never would have brought it up in the first place. And I think time is one of those things that we have not really examined in being a factor in paranormal experiences. So thank you, Chris, for that comment. I know that was sent a few months ago. And I just found it in my inbox because my inbox is completely overloaded. But you can always message me at contact@wheretheroadgo.com if you have stories that you'd like us to read on the air, or if you want to come on and talk about one of your stories. It's stories@wheretheroadgo.com. And if you're someone who thinks you would make a good guest, or have a guest that you would like to see us have on the show, contact booking@wheretheroadgo.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. I'm the only Seriah Ascath out there, and you can message me on there as well. I get rather overwhelmed with messages, so if I don't get back to you, it's totally cool if you just poke at me again, because it's entirely possible it just got lost in the shuffle. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.